for a while now, I've been wanting to read this text that I've been wanting to comment it, you know, with in a relaxed way, because normally we have to finish in 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, and given the situation, given that everybody's at home, we can dedicate time to be close to each other through modern techniques, through the modern means of streaming. And I chose something that's very precious to me. These texts are very precious. So we have time. We had these days, and we have next week, and we probably will have the week after that. So we're just going to read this. Forsake material possessions and adorn yourself with the riches of the Aryas. Leave behind all busyness and distraction and remain in places of solitude. Verse 7. Forsake all material possessions. Mundane possessions, what are those? Those are things that like at the time of death, they just end. They're things that we can't take with us. Instead, that which is called the riches of the Aryas. Arya means noble one. And the Aryas makes reference to those who have gone past the cycle of samsara, those who have developed wisdom, realizing the ultimate nature of phenomenon. Those who have no more desire and no more ignorance and desire and attachment, who've gotten out of samsara. And they're called the Aryas, or Arhats. So the riches of the Aryas are qualities, inner riches, that one can take along with one, day after day, month after month, and life after life. And normally we put a lot of energy into accumulating mundane richness, money, objects, things, just of material possessions of many different things. And when we talk about somebody's wealth, his riches, we talk about his things. But these things have value, but things change, and we know that sooner or later we're going to die. So what are our possessions, our riches that we can take with us independently of these external circumstances? These, external circumstances change, and things that are valued today won't have value tomorrow. But there are riches that, independently of where we are or the situation in which we find ourselves, that we can take these riches with us. And like material possessions, they're cultivated little by little. One has, to have a lot of money, to have a house or any other object, one doesn't just get it like that. Or he has inherited it. So it means one is born, is born with these qualities, or these things, or one needs to work really hard to put, to put money aside to get these riches. I know a lot of people who had nothing and then worked very, very hard, and they were able to save money. They were really intelligent managing things, and they were able to acquire material possessions. And in the same way, the riches of the Aryas, that we're talking about faith, the richness of love, of knowledge, of inner experiences, of generosity. These riches refer to our inner qualities. also these. Either one receives them from one's like previous life. One is born with this, with one has inherited this, from our previous life, and we're all born with, you know, um, with with a um, but sorry. So instead here, Atisha here tells us to forsake these material possessions, not because they're bad, okay, but because our energy, because instead our energy should be directed towards our inner qualities. So these verses should be read together, because if we just read forsake material possessions, it could be read in one way. But instead it's forsake material possessions and adorn yourself with the riches of the Aryas, with the wealth of the Aryas. So normally, in an ordinary way, we try to adorn ourselves with material possessions. We want to adorn ourselves with recognition, with titles, with image, important image, with money, with power, with the objects that we possess, if small, or even really big things. But here Atisha says, don't put your energy in that. Material things are there, it's fine, and they should be lived for the function that they have. I remember my master Gent Lakpala, and when sometimes we would go together in the city, from the monastery, we would go to Mysore, Bangalore, and and it was he was bothered by going to nicer hotels. And when I say nice hotels, I mean hotels that were like $2 a night, that were close to the bus stations or the train stations, and every once in a while, um, um, and sometimes I would want to have a little bit more comforts, or would go to a hotel that was still very, very simple, but maybe even closer to the places I needed to go. So, and then these hotels costed maybe $8 or $10, a night, And in Kanlapala I would say, but in the end, you need to sleep. So what does it matter? You need one bed for sleeping. So, you know, so no, even no matter how much money you have, how much food can you eat? How many clothes can you put on? How, if you're just there to sleep in the hotel, doesn't matter if it's big or small when you're sleeping. Even if you have 50 different dresses or outfits in the closet, I mean, how many can you put on that one at a time? And so he used to tell me like this. And so if we try to adorn ourselves with these possessions, it's an illusion, because we then create an identity, or we say I'm special, or because I have this, or because I have that, or because I have this title, or I'm recognized like this, or because I've done this important thing, because I own this, because I own that. And so I think that things are going well, that I'm good, I'm fine, I'm somebody important, and we generate our identity based on these material possessions. And at the end, often we end up becoming servants of these material possessions, and these possessions don't serve us. As it's said in Tibetan, people need things, and things need owners. So when we have something, then we need to take care of that thing. We need to serve that thing. And very often we spend a lot of our lifetime just serving the things that we own. So when we base our identity on these material possessions, we have a problem, because it's, how can I say? it's like a reference point. It's it's um it's 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 a reference point as to whether it's a false reference point as to to indicate whether I'm fine or not, because those possessions that that can sustain us independently of the situation we find ourselves in this lifetime and in future lifetimes. So those are the ones that we should base our those are the ones we should count on. So these material possessions are tools for living this life, and we shouldn't. They're not bad. We shouldn't eliminate them, but they're not a reference point for our identity. Instead, the riches of the jewels or the riches of the Aryas or the wealth of the Aryas, those are our own inner qualities that we should use as a reference, to see how we're doing in life, how am I doing in life, good or bad, and then put our energy as a priority into and, cultivating these riches to adorn ourselves with patience, with kindness, with love. Also, because why does a person beautify oneself with jewelry or nice clothes or a nice hairstyle or all the other ways too? Because in reality, we want to be loved. We want to be desired. We want other people to see us, to see us well. But even from this point of view, when we're in front of someone else, what attracts us to another person on a superficial level, the aesthetic level has its importance. Maybe the social position, someone's wealth. These are points of attraction. But once we know someone a little bit better, then someone could say, "Oh, this person is really handsome or beautiful," but it's better to stay away from that one, because it could happen, that someone is considered beautiful, but if someone has a very difficult character, is thin-skinned or is aggressive, then we say, well, it's better keep your distance from someone like that. It's because it's just too difficult to be near that person. Instead, when a person, is kind, is balanced, joyful, wise, etc., who has inner qualities, beautiful inner qualities, being close to that person is pleasurable. One is attracted to that person. One of the most beautiful people I know is Lama Ganchen, without a shadow of a doubt. But it doesn't follow, let's say, the standards of beauty. This is very. It depends on the culture, of course. If you go to Tibet, for example, fair eyes and fair skin is horribly beautiful. Is horribly ugly. They see someone with fair with like blue eyes or blonde hair. They think something horrible. In other cultures, instead, it's a great sign of beauty. So it's very relative, of course. But our concept and our cultural convention of beauty, Lama Kanchen isn't the reference point for beauty, for aesthetic beauty, but he has an inner beauty that is so special that shows in every cell of his body. So this inner beauty is worth more than anything else. If we want to be loved, if we want to be desired by others, etc., okay, take a little bit care of your aesthetics, but the priority is your inner makeup, as Lama Ganchen says. In the morning, in the morning, maybe one spends hours in the mirror, but let's take some time to prepare oneself inside. Maybe they'd be like, wouldn't it be wonderful if there was some kind of plastic surgery for the for your personality? Imagine you go to a clinic. You say, I'm too thin-skinned. What's your problem? I'm too thin-skinned. Okay, it's going to cost about 10,000 euros. Okay, you're not going to be so thin-skinned. Oh, we'll do it right away. Or maybe someone says, no, I'm full of envy. I mean, if it were possible to do some kind of surgery for this, it would be great. But we know that it's not possible. But if we want if we have this desire to be loved, to be desired, then we need to work on our inner qualities. These riches of the Aryas, like love, patience, generosity, humility, knowledge, joy. These are the inner qualities and satisfaction that, these are we need to put energy into these to cultivate them. So forsake material possessions, abandon material possessions. Don't project your you, you don't project your happiness, your identity onto these possessions. They should serve you, and you should not be the servant of these possessions that are worth only the function that they serve. Even just looking at the economy, for example, what determines the value of something? There's if there's something that there's something that everybody wants, and sorry, if for example, if I'm in the middle of the desert and I have a liter of water and a kilo of diamonds, then obviously the water is worth more than the diamonds. So depends on the value depends on the context. So it's really important to remember that material things are there for their function. So when that function is just to be possessed, to be owned, then there's something that's wrong. If the so forsake material possessions. Not in this sense of like get rid of everything, but just don't be a slave of material possessions. Don't project your happiness onto these possessions, but use them for your own objectives in life. I need to lead. I need to live. I need to eat. I mean, this is important for. We need to use things in a positive way. It's not that material possessions are negative in and of themselves. The problem is that we project our happiness onto these things instead of cultivating our inner richness, our inner wealth. So leave behind all busyness and distraction and remain in places of solitude. There's a word that's a little difficult to translate. Solitude. I don't think it's the right word. It says abandon all frivolousness. Jutsi in Tibetan. Jutsi. Every distraction. Leave behind, abandon things that are even pleasurable, but that take us away from our objective. So, for example, if I have the objective to meditate, to learn, to have more awareness of myself, etc., if I'm constantly, filled with distractions, then it becomes more difficult to put my energy in that clear direction. So leave behind, abandon all busyness and distraction, all the things that will take you away from your path. And on the other side, remain in places of solitude. I don't think the word solitude is the right word. Gompa in Tibetan. It, we use the Gompa for the meditation hall, but it literally means a place far away, a place far from distractions. There are even very clear rules in Tibet. For example, a Gompa. This was also the word used for monastery, even today. So it needs to have the needs to be at least 200 meters from a habitation, from other people who live there. I don't remember exactly the how far, but it doesn't mean live in solitude in the sense of being alone without anyone. But it try to diminish the unnecessary distractions because they take energy, they take time, they take away inner space, they suck up our life. We have a big part of our life is taken up by unnecessary things, information that doesn't bring anything, thoughts that are not beneficial, taken up by interactions that are not virtuous and don't bring any benefit. So leave behind busyness and distraction. Try to interact with people and things to to bring benefit, but try to focus your life, giving more time and space to meditation, reflection, etc. It's clear that today I can go live in the mountains, hundreds of kilometers away from people. But if my phone is on, with an internet connection, then I'm full of distraction. So connect with um, information that is useful, but leave behind, distractions like listening, just listening for listening, watching for watching, but all that information that we take in that takes up space inside it. The more the the more information we take in, the less space we have inside. So if we have this intention to dedicate ourselves to meditate and dedicate ourselves to spiritual path, then we need to diminish these objects of distraction. So remain in places of solitude, not be alone, not be alone, Gompa, be far from objects of distraction. The next one is connected to the one, the one after. So it was leave behind all busyness and distraction and remain in places of solitude. Refrain from idle gossip and always guard your speech. So our speech has great power, can transmit information to others. It has the power to interact with others. It has the power to reinforce our own ideas, our own thoughts, our own emotions. So when we verbalize something, we are materializing those thoughts, those feelings, those emotions. So we need to be very careful about what we say, how we use our speech in general. So when when in doubt, it's better just to be quiet. The point is not about not talking to anyone, but don't say what's unnecessary. When I speak to someone, what's happening? I have feelings, I have concepts that I think are important for the other person to know about. So then at that point, I try to communicate. But when there's verbal communication, there are three factors that are important: the person speaking, the person listening, and what is said. For communication to come out well, so it's important from my side that I know what I want to say. I need to have a good experience or understanding of what I want to say, because if that concept or that emotion is unclear to me, it's going to be difficult to express it correctly or clearly. So something that's not clear to us, I mean, how could it be clear to the next? So the first thing, first let's say it to ourselves to see if we understand what we want to communicate. I see people who have difficulty, they have difficulty in communicating because they talk without having clarity of what they want to say. The second factor is, the person listening. If I'm speaking to you, to be able to transmit that concept or that feeling, that emotion, for you to be able to understand that, I need to adapt myself to your necessities. I need to know you. I need to know your mentality. I need to know your needs. I need to know how to read, how to read, what you're going through in this period. Because saying the right thing in the wrong moment, just doesn't work. So it's important to see the other, know the other one. So even speaking to another person requires a tremendous amount of respect and humility on our part. If we want to just talk, one just says one just talks because likes to talk. That's not transmitting something. That's not communicating. But it's an act of humility because I recognize that my way of being is not yours, but I want to transmit something to you. And so I need to understand your needs. Often you see people just talking for themselves. It happens to me also, like in conferences. When you ask yourself, like, to whom are you speaking? Is there anyone interested in what you're talking about, or have you realized, who your public is? That maybe there's, very often people just speak for themselves, for their own benefit. So it's important when we talk to other people, we need to have clarity of what we want to say. And secondly, we should put ourselves at the service of others because I want to transmit something to a person or to a group of people, and we need to adapt ourselves to the language of our listener. I can't speak to you. I can't speak to you in a language you don't understand. And I'm not talking about Italian, English, Tibetan. I'm talking about the terms that we use, the mentality of the listeners, the way we talk. And this requires respect towards the listener and humility on our part as the speaker. And the third point is how the thing is said. So clarity and respect, and then the moment, the right moment, and the way something is said. If these 3 points are clear, then probably the communication will be good, will be clear. But if one of these points is missing, then the communication is faulty. So it's important for us to use our speech awareness, because it's very powerful. So the written word and also the spoken word. You know, these days a lot is written, mostly with messages. But it's like speaking. It's even worse than speaking, because when we speak on a neuro-linguistic level, once it's said that if just a part of only a small part of communication is verbal, but more than 70% of communication is nonverbal. It's the tone of voice, it's the way the person expresses himself, his body language, his facial expressions. I'm sure that we have a level of communication that is very developed. How can I say? We have like a technique, like a very advanced technique of communication, because when we're in front of somebody else, even unconsciously, we 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 can sense the we can sense the hormones, and we can the smells and the hormones of another person based on how they're feeling, and so this helps us generate also a part of our intuition, even if we're not aware of it. We have an incredible, um, incredible, way of communicating that can't be reduced just in words. You know, you know, you know. I mean, to put all of that just into letters, into words, and then even, or even less. Less for these little messages, and now these little faces, and it's just very reduced. It's very reduced for communication. But remember that when we want to talk to someone, we want to communicate. And if we don't really want to communicate, better just stay quiet. Or or we go to someone and say, I just need to really just release some stress, so just, put in some earplugs and let me talk. Or sometimes it's happened to me. If somebody would come to me and say, I need help to reason through something, can I just reason out loud so that you know, it's like I'm not trying to communicate something to you, but I need to speak to you to have clarity for myself, because often by verbalizing our feelings towards someone helps us understand better what we're feeling, or explaining something to someone else helps us have more clarity as to what we're feeling, what we want to say. So for that, on that point of view, that's good, but our motivation there needs to be very clear. So my point of view, it's fine to say, I need your help, to reason. Can you lend me an ear, or I just need to release some tension. In my point of view, it's not very useful, but what's important is at that point, you ask the listener not to pay too much attention to what you say. But when we when we when we're just talking and talking and talking, then we are not giving value to our own speech, and it loses value, it loses strength. So his verse 8 says, refrain from idle gossip, because we like chatting, chatting, chatting. Even in the monastery, but one of the heaviest negative karmas of the monks, is this idle gossips, because they're, those who are, chat here and there. There's even this term in the monastery. Um, this term is like to read the Kangyur. The Kangyur is a collection of all the sutras of Buddha. There are more than 100 volumes, and to read one, it just takes a long, long time. It just would take months if you wanted to read it. So people, the monks who just start, chatting, they use this expression, oh, he's reciting the Kangur. It's important for us to use our speech with respect. Yeah, once in a while, maybe it's fine. Maybe it's a moment to tell a story, relax a little bit, but with awareness. Don't stay in that habit of always, talking without being, aware of what we're saying or why we're saying it. So refrain from idle gossip, and always guard your speech. Be aware of what you say. If you're always aware of what you're saying, then you know, because once we say something, it's no longer ours. It belongs to who's listening, and then there's a reaction on their part. It's very important in many contexts. Um, you know, Often words can hurt more than weapons. They can even create wars or even make peace. Give more value to your speech, and I feel that this is lacking in in our society today. I grew up in the monastery, and studies based on debate, where every word had a specific reason for existing, and there was one developed the ability to have a logical, oh, one cultivated a strong logic, um, for speaking. And instead, today, I feel that is greatly lacking. So we should all give more value to our speech. So always guard your speech. These verses go together. Whenever you see your masters or preceptors, cultivate the wish to serve them with respect. Both those possessing the eyes of Dharma and those first settling out upon the path are to be regarded as your teachers. And when encountering any other beings, look upon them as your parents or your children. Here, Atisha is giving us the advice to, how to act when we meet other people. Our way of acting is a result of how we see the other, how we see others. So when we're in front of people, when we see people, when we see people for whom we have a lot of gratitude, those who teach us, our parents, our masters, the people who take care of us, who help us, the doctors, teachers. It's happened more than once. I've been really quite shaken. A big part of my education I received, it was in the monastery, and so respect for a certain amount, for a certain group of people, was very strong. Teachers merit our respect, and also doctors. Doctors take care of us. They take care of our health. They can save our lives. So one needs to have, respect towards doctors and towards teachers, not just towards our gurus. But I was shocked a few years ago. when I went to go to the university where my sister was studying. Is the university in Sao Paulo called PUC. At the time, I was living in India, and I was used to going to. I was used to the teachings of my masters, where you go in, you wait for the teacher to come in. You keep, you stay quiet. You keep your head down. Mm, Um, so even the daily lessons, maybe we didn't do prostration. Sometimes we did, sometimes we didn't. But one would enter the classroom in silence, with a great amount of respect. And when the teacher asked a question, we answered. When there was a space to ask questions, we could. And then at the end, we would stand up quietly, and we would leave without turning our back on the teacher. And I get that, for me that was normal. And I get to this university, and I get into the classroom, and I found this teacher, like it was like a chaotic situation where the teacher was trying to speak, you know there was maybe, one in the front row trying to understand, and people standing up, had their back turned to the teacher. And I walked in, and the teacher tried to calm everybody down so that I could speak. And I just stood there. I was just waited for them to quiet down. I waited them to quiet down before speaking, and it took a while, you know. You know, so little by little they quieted down, and so once they were all in silence, that's when I began to speak. But I was really sorry for the teacher, because I saw a lack of respect towards him that really upset me. That surprised me, you know. It, or also maybe there's also a lack of respect towards doctors, where um, or teachers, doctors, you know, one just takes for granted. One takes for granted their work. Yeah. But generally speaking, we should treat people with respect, and even more to those who take care of me, who take care of me on a physical level, on a spiritual level. I should have I should have mm, uh, I should have more respect. I was raised like this, and I believe like this, because by giving respect, I give value. If I can show respect to a doctor, it's a way to show gratitude, but it's also a way of giving value to giving more value to what his advice is. Whenever you see your masters or preceptors, that these preceptors would be like the abbot or the older teachers. So when you meet your masters or preceptors, cultivate the wish to serve them with respect. Cultivate this desire inside to be at their service. This is good for us. From my experience it tells me that when we give respect, we receive so much back. When we lose respect, gradually we lose a connection. It's like when we lose respect, it's this we're not able to enter into contact anymore. We lose this this even the formalities, showing respect, in formal context, have great value, without getting into details, but there are different ways, ways of showing respect. and when we're in front of our masters, for example, those who deserve our respect for based on what they give us, you know, so independently of whether a person is a master, generally speaking, but maybe you know, it's one is a master, one is a master for you. Maybe in other contexts it's not, but if for you, then you should really show your respect. Like, for example, the there are texts that show you how to relate formally with your master, like the 50 verses of Guru devotion. Then that can show us, for example, like how you act when you are with your master and the master of your master. I mean, who should I give more respect to? And it said in this text that respect we should respect the master of our master. Even so, the priority of respect should go to one's own master, because he's the master of your master is not necessarily yours, but there are some rules. If you're together with your master and the master of your master, there's some rules on how to behave. But what's important is that this direct relationship that we have that um, uh, should be put into practice, not just kept on a conceptual level. So when here in the text where it says, when you see your masters or preceptors, cultivate the wish to serve them with respect. In reality, in Tibetan, the word used is with respect, kyupa, remdra, generate, generate the wish to serve them. So yeah, it's right here. Both those possessing eyes of Dharma, those who have the knowledge and experience of the teachings, and those first setting out upon the path, the newcomers, you know, regard them as your teachers. So treat everyone with respect. Obviously, that there's a distinction, so those who have the eyes of Dharma deserve a certain amount of respect based on, the experience and the knowledge that they have, and one should, but one should relate, to everyone with the humility too. and the point is that we can learn from anyone, and we should be open to learn from anyone that we meet, because when we feel superior, or we say, oh, this one doesn't understand anything, or what do you want this person, then we're just closing up the doors. You know, we're closing the doors and to any kind of interaction we could have with that person. So both those possessing eyes of Dharma, and those first setting out upon the path, they are to be regarded as your teachers. There's always something that we can learn from someone. It's clear that we can't put our teachers from whom we take refuge, and people that we don't recognize as having the same qualities, but we should not add, and we can't put ourselves, we can't think that we are superior to anybody, and particularly when encountering any other being, look upon them as your parents or children. So when you meet someone who's older, you should see him as your mother, your father, or grandparent. Instead, when you see someone who's the same age, then you should treat them as your brother or sister. When you meet someone who is much younger, then you should treat them as if they were your own child. In other words, and it depends, on what kind of relationship you have with your own family members. But what does this mean? This means that when we're in front of another person, we should relate to them with affection and respect. Don't look to the other person with a sense of distance or that you're not connected. Because in the end, I mean, we're the ones that will benefit. You know, we benefit by acting like this, and you know, and we act in a way that's good for everyone. So when we meet someone at the supermarket or along the road or at home or even online, you know, if you're writing to someone, you know, in a group chat or whatever, treat someone treat others with respect, not because they're treating you with respect, but because it's your choice of how you're going to relate to other people. Everyone is responsible for himself, but it's not because you don't treat me with respect that I'm not going to treat you with respect. So it's important for us to have this awareness and this humility and united to the fact that we don't really know who we have in front of us. I've had different examples of this in my own life, with things that I've seen, and then also stories that people have told me. That, when there's someone in front of us, this body in front of us, we don't know who is there. You know, we don't know if it's a realized being. We don't know what deep qualities, this person has developed or not. I mean, I don't know if the person in front of me is a Buddha or a Bodhisattva or a realized being. We can't really know because there are so many stories of Buddhas who have manifested as in ordinary forms, and we really don't know who we have in front of us. Everyone should be treated with respect. In other words, the central point is that we should try to go beyond our arrogance and not see ourselves as being superior to others, but instead to relate to everyone with respect and respect, affection, and love. This is the crucial point here. These are not things that should be read once. I mean, they need to be recalled, especially when we're in contact with people who go beyond our beyond our tight family or friends. In this, it's not now that you're going to come into contact with so many people, but 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 in the modern world we have this digital contact, and on social media, for example, people really allow themselves to be aggressive and arrogant. But remember that even if it's not a physical contact, it's always an interaction with another person. So one there should maintain respect, humility, and affection, even when we're making comments about politicians or public figures. I see that people are just ready to judge and just to criticize when one really doesn't know the person. We're taken by this idealized image of a person or another, and we don't know who that person really is or not. How can I judge someone that I've never seen or that I've never spoken to? I've never had the possibility to even to listen, with feel the person with my own abilities. So we should be very careful about criticizing, but we should relate to people without arrogance, and it really makes a big difference. Do not befriend those who act in harmful ways, but rely instead on true spiritual friends. So abandoning friends who don't befriend those who act in harmful ways. In the Lamrim, for example, this point is highlighted. So, who are these friends who act in harmful ways? Maybe these are people. Maybe they're friendships. Where we have a pleasant relationship, or we have a fun together or something. But it become but these are relationships where that contact takes us away from our spiritual path, or this contact actually inflates and cultivates our negative our negativities. Instead, if you have a person can help us, can keep us from our negative conditionings, then that's wonderful. But instead, if the relationship with someone, increases our bad habits, or keeps us, trapped into negative, you know, dynamics, or keeps us away from our goals, our spiritual path, then that would be harmful to us. And so these friendships should be avoided, because we're influenced. We're easily influenced, and I've never met anyone who wasn't easily wasn't influenceable. So when we have a relationship with someone, we should ask ourselves if that relationship is strengthening our mental defilements, or and that if so, then we should create distance from those people and that relationship. It can be difficult, but we should recognize that we do get influenced by people, and we should relate with people who are possibly better, more developed than us. Of course, we don't have the choice to just be. We don't have the choice to always be and to always relate to people who are more developed than us, who have more knowledge, or are more developed. But but when we see that someone has habits, and the interactions that we have bring out more bad habits, and anger and jealousy, etc., laziness, etc., then at that point, then it's better to keep distance, from that person. At least an inner distance. I think this is quite clear. It makes me remember just a big an example. A disciple came to me and he said, "Oh, Lama, I have a problem because I have friends that I've seen, that I hang out with for years and years. I mean, they're my friends, but the habit we have is, we go out to get drunk, and I don't want to get drunk anymore like that. And I've tried to go out with them and not drink, but it just doesn't work. So in the end, I need to choose, because now they see that I'm like not their friend anymore because I don't drink anymore, and they think that I'm judging them. But instead, I'm just trying to to respect them. But and if it's a friendship based on a habit like drinking and getting drunk, and you don't want to drink, then it's better to move away from these people. Otherwise, it would be difficult to abandon, to get rid of that habit. And it doesn't mean that these people are bad. It means that the contact with those people just encourages a kind of behavior that you don't want to partake in anymore. And so we should avoid these friends who act in harmful ways, but instead rely on true spiritual friends. Rely on the human relationships that are not based so much on whether they're pleasurable or not, but they're based on mostly on the fact that these interactions help us, connect with our spiritual path. They help us develop affection or awareness. They help us have more virtuous and healthy habits. So we should try to maintain these virtuous contacts. I think this is quite clear. Abandon any feelings of hostility or ill will. And be always joyful wherever you may go. Abandon any feelings of hostility, this or sadness. Mite, dewa is happiness, and the opposite of dewa is sadness. So here, when it says abandon any feelings of Sem is mind, and so it's abandon aversion, aggression, and sadness. Sem can also mean sadness. You know, abandon that mind that sees everything negative or sad. And when I read it the first time, it really touched me because normally we see sadness as a consequence of something. I'm sad because this happened, because that happened. But when here where it says abandon sadness, it means the sadness is something that depends on me. It doesn't depend on the context. It's obvious that each one of us, I mean, that the context is going to touch, going to trigger things, trigger things within us. Same thing with jealousy and envy and on the same thing with sadness. So here too, it's just abandon sadness. It means don't identify yourself with sadness. Don't identify yourself, like I am this feeling, because there's something I believe in is that often we're not that good at really understanding what we're feeling. Often we try to give a name or to judge our feelings based on the context in which we find ourselves. But very often it's hard to actually give the right name to what we're feeling. And sadness, often, someone feels sad and doesn't even know where that sadness comes from, or can't even give it a name. I remember someone who someone who had people around him were always extroverted, and instead this person's nature was much more introverted and reflective, and then the others looked at him as if he were always sad, and so. And so this person then over the years developed the identity of being depressed and sad, instead it was just someone who needed silence and didn't do well, in chaotic situations, etc. But over the years, the person developed an identity of someone depressed. And it took a long time, but I, I helped this person understand that that there was nothing wrong with needing more quiet, needing more space, etc. So, so often we really should try not to identify ourselves with a feeling that is that has come. It's happened to me, for example, and there was a period. There was a time when I had this feeling of malaise, a kind of sadness. I had something inside of me that just took away a little bit of my joy, and if I connected with that feeling, then everything things were a little bit in black and white. There was a little less color in my life, and luckily, for my good fortune, I'm a very slow person in the sense that before taking a decision, I need to really understand something and let time go by. And so I was observing without being taken by this feeling of sadness. But as soon, you know, then one day I went to Lama Kanchen and I said, Rinpoche, I'm sad. I don't feel good. Really, there's just something that's not right. And Rinpoche is so kind. He said, where's the problem? What's the problem? That we're going to change it. And in that moment, as I was speaking to him, I understood something that in reality, I didn't know why I was feeling like that. And I didn't have a lot of clarity as to what I was really feeling. I said, in reality, Rinpoche, given this situation that I have, I could give you, I could write out a long list of things I wish were different. But then if I look and imagine each one of these things changed, and looking at myself, then I look at myself and I would think that, that feeling would still be there. So I can't say that it's this reason or that reason. So let's give it some time so the reason can come out, or it will just vanish over time, because everything is impermanent. And what really helped me was it was not identifying myself with that feeling, but relate with people in a positive way, joyous way, and and then when that feeling comes up, just I don't get taken by it, but but then after speaking to Rinpoche, after like 6 or 7 months, I found myself in Tibet. I was studying, and I was there for about 3 months. And at a certain point, I realized that sadness had gone. And then looking at it later, then I was able to connect some things. I can't tell you for certainty, it's just my idea, but what I saw and what for me worked is that, just to not be attached to sadness, to not be taken by sadness, because when these feelings come out, It could be something linked, to hormones, or to some kind of astrological aspect, or some kind of context in which we find ourselves that we're totally unaware of. What's important is that when certain emotions come out, like sadness, it's important not to block them, pretending that they don't exist, because after a while, one's going to implode or explode. But we shouldn't try to justify those feelings either by pointing the finger around and saying, I'm sad because you did this or you did that. Because when we have a feeling of sadness or something similar, what happens is that we see everything wrong, and we're ready to see defects in everything. But in reality, in that moment, it's not that the world is full of defects. It's just that our glasses are dirty. So we shouldn't be just taken by those feelings, and shouldn't act or interact or speak, etc., or take decisions, based on that negative feeling. We should remember that either the problem will at some point become clear, and that's the beginning of a solution, or just you know remember that at some point it's going to pass, and in the meantime put energy into virtuous things and the gratitude for the positive things that we have. Because with sadness, uh, the more space we give sadness, the deeper we sink. So it's really important not to follow it. So back to the text: abandon any feelings of hostility or sadness. And these are aversion is aggression, nervousness. There's some people who have a tendency to there's some people who have tendencies to have more aversion, more attraction. Um, uh, so the aversion, attachment, or sadness, which is linked to ignorance, even energetically. So when we talk about aversion, this is kind of nervousness, this tension, you know, that makes someone explode at a certain point. It's important to just abandon these feelings, to not identify ourselves with aversion or nervousness or sadness. To remember that none of us, or certainly, certainly for me, and it seems like the people close to me, those of you around me are not Buddhas, but I can't be sure. Maybe you're all Buddhas and you're just helping me along my path. But in my ignorance, it doesn't seem like that. So what happens is that it's normal that we have feelings of sadness and resentment and fear and anger and other negative feelings. But if someone says to me, "Oh, but you're Buddhist, you shouldn't get mad. You're Buddhist, you shouldn't do this, that, or the other." My point is this: I get angry because I'm Buddhist. Because if I were a Buddhist, if I were Buddha, if we're a Buddha, I wouldn't need to be a Buddhist. A Buddha doesn't need to be a Buddhist. Those who need to be Buddhists are those who have ignorance and attachment and get angry and are jealous, and us. But we need to be careful. We shouldn't be taken by these feelings. They're two very strong feelings that one has. It depends on the type of person. Is it aversion, nervousness, this kind of worry, or anxiety, like where everything bothers one. It's like a hypersensitivity in oneself, and sadness on the other side. What's important is to not block it, but not not follow it either. Don't identify yourself with this feeling. So abandon aversion and sadness, abandon any feelings of hostility or ill will, and be always joyful wherever you go. Be joyful wherever you go, in every situation you find yourself in, because in reality, if we were able to live, if we knew how, every situation, I don't mean to, um, I don't mean to say, marvelous and joyous. There are many difficult situations, but if we have within ourselves a deep joy, there's nothing that can be um, lived, separate from our spiritual path. I remember once a monk who had been imprisoned, had been tortured, and was asked what was the worst part of your imprisonment. And he said, the worst moment was when I almost lost my compassion for the guard who was beating me. So it wasn't the pain or the discomfort, anything like that. It was almost losing compassion for another being. So even, you know, so if someone who is in a situation of violence and mm, so if someone in such a difficult situation is able to maintain and cultivate the compassion and love for another, it's something else. It's marvelous. It's worth years and years of meditation. Mm. You know, I can, exhaust my negative karma, you know, when I'm sorry, when I'm healthy, I can meditate and everything's fine. When I'm sick or in a difficult situation, then that's also positive, because I can be, exhausting negative karma, etc. It's important to cultivate this awareness. Wherever you go, be happy. Don't worry. Don't condition your state of happiness by this, the where you are and the state in which you find yourself. Of course, there are places and contexts that are easier and happier, but the more we condition our happiness, our well-being, um, you know, you know, our happiness becomes very fragile if it depends on external circumstances. These are things that don't have like an immediate solution, but we should really think about what direction we want to go and how we want to be. I think the next part we can leave for tomorrow. Avoid becoming attached to anything at all and remain free from craving and desire. Here we saw the three attitudes: abandon hostility and sadness, and also avoid attachment, because we have these extremes, this extreme of aversion, this side of nervousness, anger, of hate and resentment, and then there's another part which is a desire. I'm wanting this is always wanting something, doing something, totally attracted to something and projecting our happiness onto something. And there are those who have neither one nor the other, but stay in this state of sadness, a kind of neutrality. These are the three manifestations that are just not good. I mean, this is the three energies used in the wrong way. And when we see ourselves in one of these three cases, and many people, everyone different, if I look to myself, I'm more even looking, from Tibetan medicine, I would be more phlegm, wind, nature. Phlegm is more connected to ignorance or sadness, and wind is connected to aversion. Instead, bile is linked to more anger and aversion, which is not my it's not my case. I mean, everyone has his own physical, but also, the physical constitution, but also related to one's own personality. And what's interesting is that, yeah, th- there is no constitution that is negative. Even the energy of aversion or the energy of attraction or this energy of neutrality or indifference. I mean, none is positive or negative. It just depends on what they're used for. So, and the first step is to recognize where we are. What nature are you? Are you more towards the desire and dissatisfaction or anger, nervousness, etc.? Or are you closer to sadness and resentment and in that direction? Or obviously we all have a little bit of everything, but there can be a prevalence of one, and or maybe two equal parts, but most of us have one part that is stronger than the other, and and Lojong tells us that we should start with the mental defilement that is the strongest, and we can do that by not identifying ourselves with that mental defilement, with not blocking it, but not following it. Don't materialize it. Don't materialize it with speech or with your actions, and that's going to make a world of difference. That's it mostly for today. The essence of what we saw today in the end is the importance of adorning ourselves with the riches of the Aryas, with generosity, with our ability to maintain our commitments and morality, adorn ourselves with the deep experiences of faith and enthusiastic effort and what is virtuous, and with love and respect and satisfaction, gratitude, wisdom, humility. These are the real jewels the real jewels that we should put on and cultivate them gradually. This wealth, and it should be cultivated daily with every interaction, remembering that every person, every being that we meet, every being we meet can teach us something, and we could be open to receiving something from anyone we meet. Chana Bachin Pa, Nutune, Takuchi, the Winnie Malupa, Tatu Chiwame Parashu, Tatu Tampata, Salam Tatu Tabai, Kantrasipuna Sopa, Nichi Semkan Yuchi, Janam Kula, Nitansan, Tunana Bench, Dedani, Tagatsu, Toparish. May every being ailing with disease be freed at once from every malady. May every sickness that afflicts the living be wholly and forever absent from the world. May medicines be full of strength. May prayers and mantras, healing mantras, be chanted with success. May beings who generate sicknesses like viruses and bacteria have compassion for those who are sick. And may beings everywhere who suffer torment in their minds and bodies have, by virtue of my merit, joy of our merits here accumulated by transmitting the Dharma, listening to the Dharma. May they have joy and happiness in boundless measure. At dawn or at dusk, at night or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to achieve all realizations and sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness.